We're going to do chicken Parmigiana now. This is a Melbourne pub classic. Melbournians seem to be obsessed with this dish. And I'm going to show you a really simple way to do this at home. Got some beautiful free-range chicken, some primo prosciutto. We're going to make a little sugo, which is a tomato sauce, and then we're going to throw it all together and presto. So we'll start off with the sugo. So we have a pan over a medium heat, a little bit of olive oil in there. Let's get that warm now. So we've got some diced onion. Just going to pop that into the pan. Just get a little bit of colour on this one. Now again, I don't add the garlic and the onion at the same time because I find the garlic starts to burn before the onion has some colour on it. So it's a good idea to just let the onion soften and cook just a little bit, and then we'll add the garlic. We'll add a little bit of sea salt now. That helps just draw out the moisture in the onion. Just helps to get a bit of texture. All right, now we have the chopped garlic. I'm just going to add this in. That onion's softened up nicely. Nice healthy amount of garlic in there. We just want to heat that through. We don't want it too high because we don't want that garlic to burn. If it burns, it gets acrid and that goes through your whole dish and you have to start again. So again, we'll just soften that up a little bit. Give that a few minutes. You start to smell that garlic already. That's just gorgeous. All right, so that's cooked for a little while. Now we're going to add some tomato. We've got some diced, de-seeded tomato here. Skin's still on. It's going to cook down. Okay, so we're just going to pop that in. Stir that around. It gives a lovely bit of texture. Now we're going to add a tin of diced Italian tomatoes. This gives a lot of moisture and a really good depth of flavour, and they're good all year round. Again, just combine that. And this just needs to cook gently. Now we're going to add some herbs. We've got some lovely oregano here. So those leaves have just been picked. So I'm going to roughly chop those and we'll pop that through the sugo. Incorporate that in. You can smell that the minute it hits the heat, the beautiful oregano hit. Now I like to add a little bit of red wine vinegar at this point. So red wine vinegar, it just adds a little bit of tartness, a little bit of acidity, and just gives a little bit of depth and interest to the sauce. So probably add half now. And a little bit more salt. Tomatoes love salt. Now we've got it on a reasonably low heat. Just going to incorporate that in. I'm going to let that cook for 10 to 15 minutes. We want everything to break down and just get nice and soft, and it just, as it reduces, the flavour intensifies. Okay, this has been cooking now for about 15 minutes. It's started to reduce down. Everything's getting nice and soft. All we need to do is blend that up. So this is one we prepared earlier on. So that's cooked down. We basically put that into a blender and pulsed it so it's nice and smooth. You can just taste that beautiful, intense, rich tomato flavour. Bit of salt. I think we just need to season it up just a tad. I love a really good hit of freshly ground pepper in my tomato, so I'm going to some white pepper, give it a good hit, and I think it just needs a tiny bit more of this red wine vinegar, so pop that in. It just livens that whole dish up. And simply just stir that through. And that's ready for the Parmigiana. Now there's obviously way too much, and the nice thing about this sauce is that you could use that as in a pasta. I like to just spread it on a bit of sourdough. It's just gorgeous, so it's quite versatile. So make more than what you need. It freezes really well. It's just so handy to have in the fridge. The next part of this recipe is to prepare the chicken schnitzel. Now, please don't go out and buy a pre-crumbed chicken schnitzel. You don't know what you're getting. This is a lovely free-range chicken breast. I'm just going to beat this out flat, then we're going to crumb and fry it. It's a very, very simple process. The easiest way to do this is pop that down on a board with some cling film either side. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a meat mallet, you can use that. I don't, so we've got my trusty rolling pin. I'm just going to lightly bash this out. Now, the idea is to get this as an even a layer as you can, because if it's thin one end and thick the other end, this will burn, this won't cook properly, so it's about getting that even. That looks pretty good. It's also good stress relief after a bad day at the office, so I recommend it. So that's done. The chicken's nice and even, ready to go. We've got to set up a little crumbing station. Crumb this, shallow fry it, and we're almost there. Okay, so I've set up a crumbing station now. We basically have some plain flour, a couple of eggs, and we've got some panko breadcrumbs. So the first thing you need to do is season the flour. It just adds so much more flavour to the dish. So plain flour, a little bit of Murray River sea salt, a little bit more for good measure. Now I like to add a little bit of pepper at this point. It just adds a little bit of spice to the dish. So a couple of grounds of pepper in here. Obviously you can omit that if you don't want it, maybe for kids, what have you. Just mix that through, make sure that's all combined. That's done. Next thing we have to do is just lightly whisk up the eggs. You don't have to go too crazy with this one. So we've got a couple of good free-range eggs that we're going to use. Pop those into the bowl. That's our crumbing station set up. I just need to get a fork, break those eggs up just a little bit. So that's combined. You don't have to over whisk that. It doesn't really do anything for it. Now, we're ready to go. It's the chicken breast that we flattened out before. As I said, nice and even so it cooks through at the same time. So the first thing we need to do is put the chicken into the seasoned flour. And you don't need to coat it too much. So it's basically pop it in, turn it over, and dust it off. So it's got a nice thin coating of flour on it. Next thing we do, we pop that through the eggs. So the egg's going to make the breadcrumbs stick. So that's the next stage. So basically pop that in, give it a swirl, lift it over. It's always a good trick to try and keep one hand dry so you don't get mess everywhere if you're doing multiple things. So that's covered in the egg yolk. Just let that drip off, you don't want too much yolk. Now we're going to pop that into the breadcrumbs. So into the breadcrumbs with your dry hand, just put some over the top, press that down a little bit, turn him over, and again, just get the crumbs covering the whole piece of chicken. Pat it down. And again, just turn him over, make sure it's got a really good coating. So as you can see, nicely coated with the crumbs either side, that's ready to go. Now it's time to fry this gorgeous chicken. I've got a frying pan on a medium heat, that's ready to go. Always get the pan up to heat before you put the oil into it. Beautiful bit of olive oil. You've got to be a little bit generous with this because you don't want it too dry. Now see, because the pan was up to heat, that's hot already, so that chicken's ready to go in. So our beautiful crumbed chicken. I'm just going to do one at a time. If you put too much in there, it's going to crowd the pan and it's not going to cook properly. So just going to lay that down in the pan. Just let it go. You don't need to move it around, just let it get golden brown. We're going to flip that over, put our toppings on, finish it in the oven. Simple. Okay, well that chicken is looking absolutely gorgeous. It's golden and brown, it's crispy, and we don't want to cook it all the way through because it's going to finish in the oven. So once you get that crust on there, take it off. It's still a little bit pink in the middle, so we'll pop that there. We're going to finish this whole dish in this frying pan, so there's not so much cleaning up. Make sure it is an oven-proof frying pan though, because one with plastic handles don't get along with ovens so well. It's the oven we cooked earlier. Just going to pop that next to it. Snuggle that in. Now, that's the base of our parma ready to go. over here is the sugo sauce that we made earlier and blended up. So that's going to form a base on those chicken breasts. So I'm just going to take a nice generous amount of that, spread it across the top. Spread that out. This is making me hungry. Okay, so that's the sugo base going down, and as you can see, there's loads left. Pasta sauce on toast. It's just awesome, this stuff. Now, what I've got here is some beautiful mozzarella. Like the ball, I'd rather have this big rounds than grated, so I'm just going to cut that quite thinly because we want it to melt beautifully. So we'll pop that down. With a good sharp knife, we're just going to run through that. A bit for the chef. Got these beautiful rounds of cheese. Alrighty, so that's the cheese ready to go. Now the final ingredient to bring all this together is the primo prosciutto. So I've taken it out of the pack, just gorgeous, gorgeous prosciutto. I'm just going to lay that on the top. One piece is actually enough to cover the chicken breast, but let's go overindulge it and do a couple. So I'm just going to lay that down. A couple on there. I'll just tear one in half. Lay that in, just be generous, just fill it up. That's just absolutely gorgeous. So we're done with the prosciutto. Mozzarella is the final thing we need to do. So we've just cut it finely here. Now I'm just going to take that, I'm just going to lay that down the middle of the chicken because that's going to melt and bubble and become amazing. So we'll just pop. As I said, you could use 2, but I think 3 is the way to go. I've got 3 of those. And that's it, done. It's pretty much of a one-pot wonder, this dish. It's absolutely gorgeous. Now, as I said, we need to melt that cheese. The chicken needs to be able to be cooked through properly. So it's into the oven, medium heat. I'd say for 5 to 10 minutes, but keep your eye on it because you want that cheese melted and bubbling, and you don't want to overcook the chicken. You don't want that dry. So we'll pop that in and come back to it in a minute. Okay, so that's been about 10 minutes in a 180-degree oven. I think we're going to have a look and see what we've got. Oh, baby. Look at that. They're just golden. The cheese is starting to get crunchy. That chicken would have cooked through beautifully now. We're ready to plate up and have ourselves a Parma. Good tip, and I've burnt myself so many times doing this. Hang the tea towel over the handle because you get distracted, you come back, and it ain't fun. So I'm just going to take this off. Pop that down there. There we go. A little bit of the Murray River sea salt. And while that's still warm out of the oven, it absorbs the salt way better than if it's a bit colder, so season then. But there we go. Got the chicken Parmigiana, got that beautiful sugo we made, and the primo prosciutto. It's absolutely perfect. Why go out to the pub for a bad Parma when you can make your own amazing one at home? All it needs is a cold beer.